Okay, as we wait for the first witness, let's get some perspective. Joining me is criminal defense attorney Sarah Becker, and all the way from Jacksonville State University, forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan. Sarah, I'm going to start with you. James Carlos Santos expected to testify. What do you make of that?
It's going to be a huge moment in the case, clearly. You have a man claiming credit for the murders that the defendant is accused of, but not only is he claiming credit, he said he was going to testify previously and has backed down. So I would be assured that the whole courtroom will be waiting to see what happens when he's called to the stand.
Oh, yeah, that should be something to watch. Now, as you can see, this is Kevin McElfresh. So he actually testified outside the presence of the jury in this case. He testified in the first trial. Joseph, he is expected to testify that, in his opinion, it's 700 billion times more likely that the data of the bathtub bar, the DNA, is explained as it belonging to Henry Segura and the victims rather than three untested individuals. So he is really a strong witness for the prosecution. What do you make of what he's going to be testifying to?
Well, yeah, the numbers are staggering, Jesse, and that's what always brings it home with DNA, isn't it? Out of all of the practices that we engage in forensic science, this is the one that has numerical superiority as far as quantitating, doing quantitative studies. And so, yeah, it's going to be very powerful. How do you explain away the DNA on the bathroom rail? The one area they're going to probe is they're going to say that, did he have access? That is Segura. Had he ever been in there before? So it'll be interesting to see how the defense probes McElfresh in his testimony on cross.
Okay, well, let's jump in now. So he's qualifying himself, and then we'll get really into it. Let's go live. Okay, so we're going to get out of this science lesson for a minute. I know, we'll get into the meat of it in a second. But Sarah, I want to go to you. How impactful is this really? Even if the jury assumes that this man's DNA was on this bathtub bar, how important is that for the prosecution's case?
Jesse, I think that we will really gain some information as to how important it is once the defense cross-examines the witness, because we need to know things like, in my understanding is it's possible this was mixed DNA. I think that the defense will really delve into what the importance of this DNA is, whether or not it definitively says that this was the defendant's DNA, or if it's not possible that perhaps the markers in the DNA that are related to him could have been present in his son's DNA as well. So I think a lot still will play out with this witness. I think it's also going to be important, maybe once the defendant takes the stand, if this witness does come down and say definitively the sample that he found could only have come from the defendant alone, then we need to see what the defendant says about what his interactions with the home were and whether or not he had ever been in that bathroom, if he had bathed his son in that bathroom. So it's important, but I think there's still a lot to be seen as to just how important.
Right. I mean, he said he was there the Wednesday before the murders. Then he admitted, after lying to police, that he was there on the day of the murders. But it was interesting because before those times, he hadn't been to that house for about a year. Joseph, the other big thing that's startling, and I think this is more of a win for the defense, is the lack of DNA of the defendant at the crime scene, and also coupled with the fact that this was a brutal crime, a brutal attack, and yet we don't see scratches on him. We see a one kind of scratch, but we don't see bruises to indicate a struggle. We didn't find blood on him. We didn't find blood on his clothes or his car. What does that tell you?
Well, Jesse, this is a horrific scene with a lot of blood evidence. You've got this attack that goes on with Miss Peters that is, to say that it is horrific is probably an understatement. And so that you have this physical contact that's going on. And people in the jury don't understand that. How can you have this kind of contact with her and not have left a trace of DNA behind or some semblance of your person? Right now, they're essentially focusing on this one spot that they found in the bathroom adjacent to the rail in there. And so, it's going to make people kind of stop and scratch their head. And, I think at the end of the day, the jury's saying, is this all you got to tie him back? And, look, I'm a dad. There's a lot of dads out there who can identify with getting your kids in the bathtub and getting them scrubbed up. Maybe he had opportunity to do that. And the prosecution is going to have to stand and deliver on that point.
Well, it is. The thing that hurts him is that his DNA was found right in that bathtub. He wasn't found on the sink or the toilet.
No.
It's got to be the bathtub where the bodies were found, which is not a great thing for the defense, but they're going to have their opportunity to rebut it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be live.